बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। डियर स्टूडेंट्स, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। उम्मीद है आप सब लोग खैरियत से होंगे। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह मैं भी अल्लाह के फजल से बिल्कुल खैरियत से हूँ। टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू स्टार्ट आवर लेक्चर नंबर 24 in which we will be talking about the actual insights from the point of view of the happening of the policy making process. From public policy point of view, in our previous lectures we had a very detailed and thorough discussion on the different aspects of the definition of public policy. Along with that, we have discussed in complete detail the way of making public policy. Then we have also discussed different theories of public policy. And then we have also discussed out of the 10 theories of public policies, whom we also called the models of public policy. We have discussed the different aspects of who, how, and assumptions or implications of those public policy theories and models. And in the continuation of that, in our today's lecture, we would again be having a detailed discussion, inshallah, on the aspects of how to, meaning to let you know that what would be happening inside the process of policy making. It will be helping you to build your skill. It will be helping you to sharpen your skill as far as the program of policy making is concerned. So dear students, the first aspect of this how-to of public policy making process would be providing you with an overview of whatever used to have to happen in this public policy making process. The first of all, as far as how to is concerned, first of all you have to go for the definition of policy, defining a policy. This is how which we have discussed yesterday too, and this is that something over which inshallah we would be having little more discussion in our today's meeting. In this defining of policy, we would have been discussing the types of policies, and we would have been discussing even the applications of those policies. Then after defining the policy, we would have been moving towards the development of policy. And this development of policy would have been providing you an overview and inside understanding of the process of the developing of the policy, and along with that process we would also be having a discussion on the fact-based aspect of this developing of the policy making process. Then it will have been making us discuss the next aspect of that has been given in the name of policy decisions, dear students. In this policy decisions aspect, we would have been talking about the recommendations, about the policy decisions, and we would definitely be having debate on that policy decision approach in which you would have to give recommendation to policy developers and policy formulators. Then we would have been talking about implementing policy, the most important aspect of the overall public policy making process. Anything which you could not implement is of no use actually, whether it is related to public policy or whether it is related to business policy. If you really would like to earn and consume the fruitful results of your whole effort, you are actually required to be very good at the implementation of whatever you have formulated before. As far as implementation is concerned, I told you many a times before that in implementation stage, communication always plays very vital and very significant role. And along with that communication's importance in this implementation of policy, we would also have been having some discussion on the evaluation of the policy. Now this is which is all about how to of policy making, and this is which I would like to make you all understand in a clear cut and in a concrete manner, dear students. So after that, as far as the competencies required for this particular aspect is concerned, they have been discussed in this slide, and they would like you to be good at the understanding of legislative powers at all, then communicates effectively, then approaches of problem creativity, then assumes oversight role. These are the competencies which are required by you in this understanding of how to of policy making process. Dear students, etiquette as far as regarding public policy is concerned, they will make you be very good at the following aspect shown to you in this particular slide, and they are related to the aspect of paying respect the program and be on time after breaks. If you really would like to be involved in any aspect of public policy making process, or even if the implementation of that public policy, you are required to be a disciplined individual in the manner that you are expected to respect the program and be on time after breaks. Then second very important aspect, which is very basic norm actually, is turn your phone to silent. Very basic manner regarding the any aspect of what you would have been doing actually. Be courteous and patient with others, as you would have been working in a team. You would have been working sometime as a member of that team, or at some other time as the leader or the captain of that team. So you are expected to be very courteous and very patient while working with others. And dear students, after that you are expected to assume required roles for activities. Whatever assignment would have been assigned to you, you are expected to take it fully by your heart so that you can implement on it efficiently and effectively. And along with that, another etiquette is regarding taking time to listen to other points of view. You must be a good listener if you will have to work in a team-like environment, because they would have to convey their emotional, their professional, and even their social and technical understandings to the members of the team, which would be responsible for the application of the policy. And along with that, it is very important for you to be the captain and the leader of the team, to encourage your team members, to encourage others regarding their ideas available to you, and they would have been sharing those ideas for the improvement of any particular process of the whole public policy making process. Dear students, along with that, in our today's meeting, out of the overview of what we have collected about the how to of public policy making process, the first section is the definition of the policy. This is which we would have been discussing in complete detail here. First of all, what is a policy? As far as the justification of this policy is concerned, this policy would initially have been providing you with the statement of intentions to guide decision making. This is going to be the most important and the most comprehensive definition of among all definitions of public policy. That policy would always be the statement of intentions to guide decision making. Then what you'll have to do next in this policy making definition is to translate your vision to actions. And it means that whatever would have been given in your mind in the form of some policy decision, you have to translate into some action. Then a functional framework for staff actions. Whosoever would be involved with you in that policy making process, you also have to take care of the aspect of making a series of actions for those people who would be joining you into the implementation stage of the policy, or even would be with you into the formulation stage of the policy. And finally, it will be helping you regulate how citizens live in a community. Your focus must be on the well-being of the life of the citizens of your community, for whom you would actually have been designing some policy which you have to be implemented at the end. Dear students, this policy term will provide you with some particular areas of direction about which it will have been providing you some insights. Number one area is policy challenge. Policy challenge is all about the issue or the problem which you would have been facing at that time. That issue or that problem which you might have been facing at that time would be making you go develop a policy on that issue. So you have to take it the policy challenge actually. And once you would have been making some policy in response to the policy challenge you have faced before, you also even have to talk about the policy results, desired outcomes. Okay, if you are into the making and how to the making of the policy, particularly public policy process, you have to make it very clear for the citizens of your community that this policy implementation would have been providing you with those certain expected results. Then policy options would be the other policy term, and in it, in policy term, you will have to talk about the policy alternatives. By this policy alternatives, it is somehow self-explanatory concept that which are the different aspects, which are the different available alternatives, which are the different available courses of action regarding that particular policy or regarding that particular policy challenge. And finally, as far as the policy terms are concerned, you also have to bring into your serious consideration the aspect of policy action. And policy action is all very simple as far as its understanding is concerned. It always conveys you its different steps during the implementation phase as far as your policy implementation is concerned. Dear students, now as far as if we talk about the policy definitions from different aspects, from policy analyst point of view, we will have to consider the importance of staff who would be involved into this policy analysis. Then policy makers would be your elected officials whom you would have assigned this responsibility of policy making before. Then as far as the process of policy making is concerned, it will keep in its main focus different issues, the outcomes of those issues, and the alternatives and actions regarding that particular public policy. Then, as I told you before in my previous lectures, that there are two types of policies basically, formal policy and informal policy. Formal policy would be the public document, and as far as your informal policy is concerned, it would be in action creating precedents. So dear students, if we continue our study on those different aspects of the policy, and if we try to find out the characteristics of a good policy always come up in combination along with these few given characteristics, which has been shown to you all in this particular slide. Number one, a good policy would be that policy which will be beneficial to public, respecting individual rights, in which you have not only be making some benefit available to the citizens, you have been bringing into your serious consideration the individual human being rights into that policy making process. Then a good policy always remains consistent with the legislative authority, यानी कि आपकी पॉलिसी के अंदर कंसिस्टेंस होनी चाहिए, रिलेशनशिप होना चाहिए, इंटीग्रेशन और डिपेंडेंसी होना चाहिए, एक ही लाइन में होना चाहिए आपकी लेजिस्लेटिव अथॉरिटीज और जो पॉलिसी आप अपनी आवाम के लिए बनाते हैं. द पॉलिसी मस्ट रिफ्लेक्ट्स कम्युनिटी विजन. इस पॉलिसी को आप तभी अच्छी पॉलिसी कह सकते हैं जब ये आपकी कम्युनिटी के विजन को इसमें इनकॉर्पोरेट किया जाता है. द common public for which you would have been making that policy must be well informed about that policy if you really would like to categorize as that it is a very good policy. Then, my dear students, another characteristics which makes any policy a good policy is that it must be within the organization's resource capacity. ये आपकी जो रिसोर्स कैपेसिटी है एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ये उसके अंदर रह के डिज़ाइन की जानी चाहिए. उसकी एप्लीकेशन के लिए जो आपकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के रिसोर्सेज हैं वो सफिशिएंट होने चाहिए. उसी सूरत में आप कह सकते हैं कि आपकी ये पॉलिसी एक अच्छी पॉलिसी है. Now, as far as the next aspect which is very important is the interpretation of the policy. Sometimes, dear students, real life issues के हवाले से हमने ये बात भी नोटिस की है कि इंटरप्रिटेशन की बेसिस पे एक अच्छी पॉलिसी को शायद इनिशियली कुछ हार्श पॉलिसी या ज़्यादा स्टिफ पॉलिसी समझा जाता है, या अगर पॉलिसी फॉर्मुलेटर या पॉलिसी मेकर और जिनके लिए इम्प्लीमेंट की जाती है, अगर उन दोनों लेवल्स पे पॉलिसी की इंटेंशंस की इंटरप्रिटेशन में कुछ डिसएग्रीमेंट्स आ जाएं, तो एक काम जो आपने अच्छी इंटेंशन से किया होता है शायद वो एंड रिजल्ट पे आपके लिए उतना अच्छा नहीं रहता. So, it is very important to try to collect the actual, genuine and the positive interpretation of the policy. और जो मैंने आपको शुरू में भी कई दफ़ा बताया कि communication used to play very very important role in such situations. पॉलिसी की इंटरप्रिटेशन के लिए भी कम्युनिकेशन का चैनल ओपन रखना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है, ताकि आप दोनों के कंसर्न्स को, यानी कि पॉलिसी मेकर और उन लोगों के लिए जिन पे पॉलिसी इम्प्लीमेंट की जानी है, दोनों को अपने कंसर्न्स को डिस्कस करके सेफ गार्ड करने का पूरा मौका मिले. Then, my dear students, any policy which remains adaptive always considered to be a good policy. Along with that, dear students, why do we need to go for this policy? One very important aspect, हमें पॉलिसी की ज़रूरत क्यों होती है? या हमें पॉलिसी की ज़रूरत इसलिए होती है एज लेजिस्लेटेड रिक्वायरमेंट फॉर इलेक्टेड ऑफिशियल्स. ये उनकी बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट होती है दैट इट इज गोइंग टू सर्व यू द बेसिक फ्रेमवर्क फॉर द गोल एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, your community, the political actors which would have been formulating policy for you and all that. Then finally, as far as the next important aspect Why do we need the policies to be formulated and implemented? As it requires you with the guidance program which would have been designed and service delivery aspect. Then rules and regulation for decision making. Then principles that guide day-to-day actions. पॉलिसी आपको इसलिए ज़रूरत पड़ती है कि डियर स्टूडेंट्स ये आपके डे टू डे एक्शंस, आपके जो डेली ऑपरेशनल एक्टिविटीज़ की रिक्वायरमेंट्स होती हैं, उसके लिए ये आपको एक डिटेल्ड आउटलाइन, एक डिटेल्ड ट्रैक और रोड मैप प्रोवाइड करता है. ये आपकी डिसीजन मेकिंग की फैसिलिटेशन के लिए पॉलिसी का होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. ये आपकी डिसीजन मेकिंग की फाउंडेशंस के पैरामीटर आपको प्रोवाइड करता है. So dear students, along with that, as far as now after why policy is required, if we talk about the categories of different policies, we will be finding that there would be governing policies, then there would be operational policies, then there would be administrative policies. And all those governing, operational and administrative policies would be very, very important for the well-being of the community. And here we could ask ourselves this question: what are some examples from your organization within these categories? So dear students, now as far as bylaw, policy or procedure is concerned, this is going to be an important aspect. These three are the different terms, the different concepts which are one or in another way going to be directly related and relevant to the policy. Now as far as bylaws are concerned, first of all I would have been talking some examples of bylaws with you all. For example, you would used to have in your organizations fees and charges bylaws. Then there would be few green space bylaws whom you might have heard about. Then zoning bylaw, then annual budget bylaws are there, and then joint use agreements bylaws, somehow you might have heard them. Now as far as the aspect of policy from this particular connection is concerned, policy is always related to the facility use policy. Park reserves, for example, then application process for the shortlisting of some particular phenomena, for the finalization of some phenomena, then the reporting schedule would always serve as a stronger policy in any organization. Then the way you develop your scheduling process is always be an example which you could take for the justification of the policies. Now as far as the procedures are concerned, dear students, fee collection steps would be a procedure, and then park maintenance standard in this continuity of what we have been discussing in particular slide would be an example of the procedure. Then application checklist would be there, then report formats are going to be there as a procedure for your reporting schedule and your annual budget. And at the end, as far as the procedure is concerned, you can take about the example of cleaning schedule. Now for example, if again we discuss the bylaws and the policy and the procedure in one continuity, just take the example of the first particular section from this particular slide, that fees and charges are the bylaws, and facility use policy is going to be an example of policy, and the fee collection steps would be the justification of the term of procedure as far as the difference between these three terminologies are concerned. Now here I would like to give you a food for thought. Can you think of some examples from your own organization to add to these categories? आप अपनी लाइफ में से, अपनी कॉमन लाइफ में भी अपने बाई लॉज, पॉलिसी और प्रोसीजर के हवाले से एग्जाम्पल्स कलेक्ट कर सकती हैं। और अगर आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ काम कर सकती हैं या काम कर रहे हैं, तो इवन देन इट विल रिमेन एन इजी टास्क फॉर यू टू फाइंड आउट डिफरेंट बाई लॉज, policy and different procedures which would be governing you in your organization. Dear students, now as far as the major applications of the policy is concerned, it would be applied on land use, it would be regarding services delivery, it would be addressing the issue of funding, and policies would be related to the different administrative measures. Now dear students, as far as good policy which we have discussed before, if we need to develop the activity for the implementation of that good policy, we also have to discuss some other aspects of this particular good policy activity, and they have been given here in this particular slide. The first thing which is of utmost importance would be the purpose of that policy activity actually. Purpose always remains the main cause behind any of your action, कि आप किसी काम को, किसी पॉलिसी को करने का मकसद या पर्पस क्या है. नंबर 1, select facilitator, recorder, timekeeper and presenter as far as good policy activity is concerned. Then review policy checklist, आपने recorder भी रख लिया, facilitator भी हो गया, टाइम कीपर भी है, प्रेजेंटर भी है. अब आपने सेकंड स्टेप में पॉलिसी की रिव्यू चेकलिस्ट भी तैयार कर लेनी है, और उसमें अगर ज़रूरत हो तो कुछ एडिशंस भी कर लेनी है. Number 3, agree on 3 items critical to policy success. All those who would be involved into the policy making or policy implementation process, they are required to develop and to collect their agreement on 3 particular issues for a good policy activity. Then number 4, share policies that fell short. Number 5, share policies that excel. And number 6, present one example to plenary. My dear students, along with that, now if we talk about the second section of this how to of policy making process, it will provide us an insight and detailed discussion on policy development aspect. Now as far as policy development or policy making process is concerned, I have tried to give you an overview through this model about this policy making process. If you look at the yellow aspect of this particular circle of the this particular slide, it will be giving you an idea of flexible thinking. For the policy making, the first most important thing is to develop a flexible thinking pattern. You are not required to be very rigid or very stiff as far as your thinking regarding policy making is concerned. You need to keep an open mind in that particular situation, so that new and novel and unique ideas could jump into your overall thinking, and the flexible thinking would be providing you with an advantage as far as this policy making is concerned. And this flexible thinking will also earn you a space in your mind and in your thinking process about the development of your analytical skills. So it will have been taking you towards the analytical thinking, which will have been making you develop your skills of being very innovative as far as your thinking is concerned, and that of your innovative thinking would be finally making you go develop your strategic thinking, and that of your strategic thinking would be providing you with an edge, with an advantage about your this policy making process, and it will be coming to you through debriefing, through discovering, through developing, and through delivery. And if we talk about the different aspect of this green shaded area of discover, it will have been making you in that discovery phase to understand, to identify, and to describe the particular issue. And after you understand, you identify, and you describe the particular issue, it will become very easy for you to now enter into this blue cell of this particular slide, which requires you to develop. And for the development of that policy, you are required to be very creative. You need to consult the people around you about that policy, and on the basis of that consultation, you would have to come up with the recommendation about that public policy. Now, in the deliver aspect, you have to decide, you have to communicate, and you have to talk about the implementation aspect of it. And if you go for again this debriefing in this yellow section, it requires you monitor, evaluate, and adjust with your this policy making process, dear students. Now, as far as informed decision making about this particular aspect is concerned, this informed decision making must be fact based. It must informs rather than directs. Policy decisions, ये एक बहुत अहम पॉइंट है डियर स्टूडेंट्स. आपने बजाय किसी को डायरेक्टिव देने के या कोई अपनी आइडिया को इम्पोज करने के, इट वुड बी अ वेरी रैशनल अप्रोच अवेलेबल टू एनीवन टू इन्फॉर्म द कंसर्न्ड इंडिविजुअल and then let them decide about whatever issue they have been facing at hand at that particular point in time. Then inquiring minds want to know, and then decisions must be based on evidence, not emotions. एक ये और अहम बात है डियर स्टूडेंट्स, इमोशनल होके डिसीजन मेकिंग करने में समटाइम्स आपको बेनिफिट होता है, लेकिन समटाइम आपको बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान भी हो सकता है. इमोशनल डिसीजन मेकिंग के मुकाबले में सस्टेनेबिलिटी या बेनिफिट्स के हवाले से यह 100% आउटकम को अर्न करने के हवाले से इट इज ऑलवेज एडवाइज्ड दैट गो फॉर द डिसीजन विच आर बेस्ड ऑन द एविडेंस, नॉट बेस्ड ऑन द इमोशंस. Then you need to develop objective decisions and not the subjective one. And in this decision making process, you are very much required to support the transparency, dear students. Now, as far as the different issues are concerned regarding this public policy making process, as far as the second phase is concerned, you have to talk about the different types of issues which would have been making you go for the policy making. And the number one aspect which must come into your consideration is paying some attention to the routine policy challenges, and the routine policy challenges would be making you be aware of something which is not new, and the solutions which are already known, and then policy options which are already clearer to you. Now, as far as complex policy challenges are concerned, there would be few challenges related to the new solutions which are not clear. You have yet to talk about and yet to think in detail about those aspects. Then unexplored policy options. आपने उन policy options को भी discuss करना है, उन पे भी बात करनी है जो अभी completely explore नहीं की गई. Then uncertain policy actions would be another aspect which would be creating some complexity in policy challenges. Dear students, now as far as the discovery stage of this policy making process is concerned, it requires you develop your analytical thinking. analytical thinking would be a blessing, would be an advantage to you if you have already been behaving like that. And in this analytical thinking, you would have been passing through the phase of discovering something, which will become again very easy for you if you would have been first understanding the phenomena well. On the basis of your this understanding, it will help you identify and then finally describe the aspect. You can take it like that. In discovery stage, defining the problem, validity of facts, more than one problem might be there, what questions are needed to be asked at that particular stage, what existing information is available to you, then it would be requiring you to go for some research to collect some additional information regarding that, and then you will have to think about the best practices available to you or available around you. It will be giving you, an output of a key question which you will have been formulating at the end of your this discovery stage on the basis of your analytical thinking, dear students. Now, as far as policy briefing regarding this is concerned, in which you have to talk about the issues would be regarding the related problems which you would have been facing at that time, then background, which would be about the available data or the feedback, then policy challenges, which will be letting you know about the key question that guides your policy inquiry, then the aspect of stakeholders, which would be affected parties or those who are required to be involved in that policy briefing and making process. Then there would be few expectations related to the development of that policy, and these expectations could be described in the measurable outcomes or the impact of that policy. Then policy results. Policy results would be related to the key outcomes or the key products of your that policy. Then how about the alternatives? Alternatives are actually be the ways to achieve policy results here. Now policy options, and policy options, dear students, would have been providing you with the best alternatives to address the current issue at hand. Then policy actions. Policy actions are regarding the implementation steps and the milestones regarding the implementation of that policy. Then resources, which would be fiscal, human and sport required for the making and the implementation of the policy. At the end, for your own understanding, you can ask yourself this question, that why is it helpful to have a standard format which we have discussed in this particular slide, dear students. Now policy definition activity, purpose. Again, I have told you before that it would be selecting facilitator, regarder, timekeeper or presenter. Then it is about discussing policy issue you have been facing at that time. Then agreeing on one to use as a group. Then identify information available to you as far as policy briefing worksheet is concerned. Then it will help you as far as policy definition activity is concerned. It will help you identify your basic questions which will be making you go for this policy making, and at the end you will have to choose one key question which will be serving as a source for the policy making. Dear students, then policy results, subjective expectations which always remains observable by you. Then objective expectations would also be associated with certain policies which will become measurable. Then input from citizens, which is regarding property owners and residents. And then input from the agencies, which is non-profit and private or even government agencies. Then Then as far as finding out the policy results are concerned, you have to talk about the indirect input too, which is related to the questionnaire, comment card वगैरह, and then direct input. Your advisory committee and public hearing would have been providing you with the direct input as far as the aspect of your this policy making is concerned. Dear students, along with that, as far as policy results activity is concerned, it will also be having some given purpose behind it, and that purpose would be regarding the key results if the policy issue is addressed. And as far as the breakdown of this key issue regarding the addressing of policy is concerned have been given here in 5 steps. Number 1, select a facilitator, keep a recorder, timekeeper and presenter. Number 2, determine your stakeholders. Number 3, list observable and measurable expectations. Number 4, determine your key results. And number 5, dear students, is debriefing questions in workbook. So my dear students, if we talk about whether a policy is genuinely needed or not, then we would have been having this justification given in this particular slide. To comply with legislations, you need to have a policy. To establish consistent treatment, again you require to have a policy. To guide respect solution and repeated solution, you again have to require a policy. To establish standards and basic regulation, you require to have a policy. And then to protect the municipality legally, you need to have a policy. Then if employee actions indicate confusion, to overcome or to refuse that confusion, you need to have a policy. And again, as for a food for thought for you all, I would be putting you all with this question, that can you think of an example when policy was not needed for an issue facing by council? कि क्या कभी ऐसा भी हुआ है कि आपकी अपनी लोकल कम्युनिटी में, आपके अपने मोहल्ले में, आपके अपने एरिया में अगर कोई इशू फेस करना पड़ गया तो उस इशू के सलूशन के लिए आपको किसी पॉलिसी गाइडलाइन की ज़रूरत नहीं थी. To the best of my knowledge, it usually happens on very, very rare occasions. Even if that something has been addressed at very first instance for you in your whole life, whatever decision you would have been making in that particular situation for the very first time in your life would have been serving as a policy or a policy statement at that particular point in time. Now my dear students, as the next stage which is available with the development stage is concerned, which has been quoted in this blue color, it will also make us think about some aspect of this public policy making process. In that development stage, you have to talk about the seeing possibilities. आपके पास क्या क्या different possibilities available हो सकती हैं. Then analyzing different options about those different available possibilities. Then you have to talk about the best practices. Then you have to develop your contrary views, and then you have to go for your innovative ideas, and then you even have to talk about the mandate and success and effort regarding that, and then also you have to talk about the advantages, disadvantages in the form of pros and cons, or even best or worst rating of that something. Now I would like to describe you what has been given for this developing stage in this blue coated area. In this development stage, you have to go to create the policy through the consultation, and on the basis of consultation you have to come up with the final recommendation, and it would have been developing your overall innovative thinking about that public policy making process. Dear students, now as far as the practicality of that policy is concerned, we used to come up with a practicality checklist which will have been shown here in this particular slide, which will let us know about the options of analysis criteria. Number one, legislative is, likely, medium and unlikely scale has been given here about that particular checklist of the practicality. You would have to come up with your options of yes, maybe, not, or even you might have to stay neutral as far as your that checklist question answers is concerned. For example, in this first aspect of legislative is, as far as likely aspect is concerned, it has given us the answer of yes. In that medium, maybe, or in even unlikely aspect, the answer has been given in the form of no. In this particular matrix which has been made for this practicality checklist, you can understand it well by yourself, but as far as policy practicality checklist is concerned, you always have to develop some such type of matrix. And at the end, dear students, he has even given you a food for thought here in the form of a question that can you think of other practical considerations along with the few considerations which are given here to evaluate policy alternatives. Now, as far as the policy result activity is concerned, dear students, there would be a purpose of it, and the purpose is to generate possibilities and alternatives for resolving the policy issue. And how would you have been doing that? Number one, here again you have to select the facilitator. You have to make sure the availability of recorder. Then you have to keep the timekeeper and presenter with you. Here again, you have to determine your stakeholders. You have to list observable and measurable expectations. At number 4, you have to determine the key results. And at number 5, debrief questions in your workbook. Dear students, it will make us reach at the delivery stage of the public policy making process. And at that delivery stage, we will have to finally come up with our strategic thinking. And that strategic thinking will be related to making the decision through the communication and for the implementation of your that policy. And the different aspects which will become under your consideration in this delivery stage are regarding you have to plan to implement best options, you have to come up with the sequenced actions, you have to take up the responsibility for that, and then timeline would have been associated with this all. Then the resources would have been described here, then the expenses which you would have to bear for this delivery stage, and then the discussion regarding the revenues which you will be generating through this particular process, and then your startup cost results in a policy action plan actually. Dear students, now if we talk about the policy action activity from purpose point of view here, the purpose would remain to identify actions, timelines and resources. These are two very, very important aspects, timelines and resources to implement the policy recommendation. Dear students, here what you have to bring into your serious consideration is the selection of facilitators, keeping the recorder, timekeeper and your presenter, as this is what we have done in our previous activities before too. Then at second point, in step number 2, you have to identify the required actions to implement the preferred options, then in number 3 what you'll have to do is to develop the sequence of the action using a timeline. Then you have to assign different positions to different tasks. Then you have to go for the identification of your resources, and at number 6 you have to go for the debriefing questions in your workbook, dear students. Now, as far as the policy recommendations are concerned, on the basis of the last stage, there would be policy briefing, and this policy briefing would have been making you briefed about the facts and comparative information available to you, which has become the major source or the foundation of the policy, which is at hand by you, available to you at that point in time. Then prepared for council discussions and debate. Now, as far as the policy format is concerned, dear students, this policy formatting is equally important, and it will have been talking about the policy recommendations, and it will have been talking about prepared for council debates and approvals. And here again a food for thought has been contributed to you all in the form of this question given at the end of this particular slide. I request you to take this question seriously for your own consumption and try to answer itself by your own experience or from your own environment. Can you recall a time when staff prepared information that was not what council was looking for? कि council को या organization को या आप यहाँ किसी और identity को भी take up कर सकते हैं कि आपने एक ऐसी information collect करके provide कर दी है जो actually उनको उस वक्त required नहीं थी. So dear students, if we move little further about this policy formatting is concerned, I have developed an example in the form of this particular slide for you all to make you all understand this policy format well. Number 1, as far as the policy format from the municipality or from the council is concerned, you might have to come up with the logo of your council, logo of your municipality, logo of your local organization at the upper side of the left cell of this particular area. Then in the central section, along with that municipal logo, you have to describe the type of policy. At the right hand side, in the upper right hand cell, you have to quote the policy number to it. You have to even collect the signatures by the authority who has approved that policy. Then you have to justify and mention the effective date of that, and even you have to talk about and clearly mention the department who would be concerned with this policy. Now, in this policy format document, you have to first of all describe the purpose of your policy. You have to come up with the definitions of that policy. You have to come up with the policy statement. Then after policy statement, policy content would be the next aspect which you are required to describe here. Then the related and supporting documents are required to be mentioned here. Then you might have to come up with the appendices, and then even you have to give the approval regarding that. Very quickly, I will be describing you all those aspects. For example, at step number 1, or the first starting step, is about the purpose of policy under policy title, and I can quickly justify you the purpose of some policy. डियर स्टूडेंट्स, यहाँ पे पॉलिसी का पर्पस क्या हो सकता है? इसका पर्पस इस तरह भी आप दे सकते हैं कि इट विल डिस्क्राइब द इशू द पॉलिसी इज मेंट टू एड्रेस, कि इशू क्या है जिसको पॉलिसी एड्रेस कर रही है, और इवन इट डिस्क्राइब द डिजायर्ड पॉलिसी रिजल्ट्स एंड आउटकम्स। पर्पस ये भी हो सकता है कि इसका डिजायर्ड एक्सपेक्टेड आउटकम इस पॉलिसी का क्या है। देन इफ वी टॉक अबाउट द सेकंड एस्पेक्ट ऑफ डेफिनेशन, डेफिनेशन में आपने क्या करना है, डिफाइन द टर्म्स इंक्लूडेड इन दैट पॉलिसी एंड प्रोवाइड्स क्लैरिटी एंड कंसिस्टेंट अंडरस्टैंडिंग अबाउट दैट पॉलिसी। जब हमारे पास पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट का एस्पेक्ट है, पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट में आपने क्या डिस्क्राइब करना है, it must reflect the relevance to organization's broad vision and it must cite the relevant laws, regulations or even codes. Then if you come up with the policy content में क्या कुछ होता है, कंडीशंस दी गई होती हैं डियर स्टूडेंट्स, प्रिंसिपल्स एंड एप्लीकेशंस दी गई होती हैं, एंड हु विल एडमिनिस्टर द पॉलिसी, ये भी पॉलिसी कंटेंट में डिस्कस किया जाता है। रिलेटेड डॉक्यूमेंट्स में आपको किस किस चीज की जरूरत होती है, लिंक्ड और सुपरसीडिंग पॉलिसीज you are required here, then the references to the implementation of those procedures are also going to be required here. Appendices में आप related information leading to the policy provide कर देते हैं, and related information for the implementation of the policy भी आप quote कर देते हैं। Approval में आप वो डेट ऑफ रेजोल्यूशन एंड अप्रूवल बाय काउंसिल यहाँ मेंशन कर देते हैं। सो डियर स्टूडेंट्स, पॉलिसी रिकमेंडेशन एक्टिविटी जो हमने अभी डिस्कस की, इसके भी कुछ पर्पस होते हैं, और वो क्या होते हैं, to review a policy recommendation to ensure the support from the council। और इसकी हमने अगर फर्दर डिटेल जानना चाहें तो इसको किस तरह एग्जीक्यूट करना होता है, इसमें भी आपने सेलेक्ट करना फैसिलिटेटर को, रिकॉर्डर होना चाहिए, timekeeper and presenter are also required. Then you have to go for the reviewing of policy briefing information and determine your final recommendation. Number 3, what factors affect the recommendations? Number 4, how will you address these factors? Who would be affecting your recommendation in step number before 3? And number 5, what information needs to be presented to the council here? ये भी आपने डिटेल से इसमें डिस्कस करना होता है। और आखिरी पॉइंट जो कि छठा स्टेप है, इसमें हमने as always we have to go for the debriefing about that policy. Now dear students, if we reach at section number 3 of our policy decisions would be about consensus, about informed, it must be related to the majority, and it must be imposed or otherwise develop the agreements on that. इसमें क्या क्या करना है, कंसेंसस में वर्किंग थ्रू व्यूज अंटिल एग्रीमेंट अमंग ऑल आ जाता है। देन इन्फॉर्म का जो एस्पेक्ट है, इट हेल्प्स यू एनालाइज ऑप्शंस थ्रू रिस्पेक्टफुल डिस्कशन डियर स्टूडेंट्स। देन मेजॉरिटी में वोटिंग बाय दोज हु हैव अथॉरिटी टू वोट। देन इम्पोज्ड की सिचुएशन है विच इज अबाउट डिसीजंस बाय वन विद अवेलेबल अथॉरिटी। डियर स्टूडेंट्स, इन्फॉर्म्ड डिसीजन मेकिंग में हमने कुछ और पहलुओं को भी देखना होता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एडिक्वेट इंफॉर्मेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड हेयर, good debate would be important here, factual information and data would be required here, forecasting and trends explanation would be required here, perception from various interests would be important here, and justification and further analysis would equally be important here. Dear students, types of decision which you actually make here would be like routine decisions, your close-ended decision in the form of yes or no, then even you have to talk about the best choice decision, and then you even have to take up the responsibility responsibility of that decision. They all are self-explanatory, but at the end of that, again I have come up with a question for you all in the form of food for thought for you all, which has been given here like that. What are some examples for each decision type in your own area, in your own community? Try to find that out. And policy consequences would also be discussed here. Those are predictable, dependent, and risky. By predictable, I would like you to all understand that enough information is available to you to predict the outcome. Then dependent, different viewpoints that need comparisons. Then risky, possible or unknown negative consequences associated or attached with your different decision making. Food for thought. What are some examples of different policy consequences you have experienced in your whole life till yet? Dear students, good debate regarding this particular issue would be making you understand the differs from discussion. Good debate intended to result in a decision. Then other aspect is formal process that occurs in public. Yes, agree with the recommendation. No, turn down the recommendation. Refer or order means more information is still required regarding that. Debate activity again used to have some purpose here, and that is the purpose to discuss reasons policy debate might derail. Number one, select facilitator, keep recorder, timekeeper and presenter. Then brainstorm factors that derail policy debate. Choose two at least. As a mayor, you are required to go for the how would you deal with these issues. As a councillor, how could you prevent these from occurring? Number 5, report back to plenary. And then finally at number 6, you have to go for the debriefing on it. Principles of good debate here, dear students, would be making you understand, know what you are talking about. Use logic to present your idea and your side. Be accurate, rely on facts, be professional in your conduct, use sportive language, avoid exaggeration, follow protocols, points of order, and keep your perspective clear for the good debate. Now, policy debate activity, dear students, would be letting you know the purpose of that, and the purpose here is to present and debate policy recommendation in a simulated council meeting. For this, you have to select facilitator, you have to keep the recorder, timekeeper and presenter. Then prepare your presentations by using the policy briefing worksheets. Then present to a council within 5 minutes or less preferably, and switch roles as council and observer. Dear students, the final section of policy implementation would now be discussed by all of us. Implementation factors are very important, and they are related to the capacity to implement the decision. And the capacity is regarding staff time, fiscal resources, expertise, and unforeseen conditions would again be important here regarding community acceptance, political will, and legal capacity as far as implementation of the policy is concerned. It will have been giving you with some unintended consequences of trade-offs, which is negative impact exceeds benefits. Social impact भी आपने इसमें देखना है, which causes people to react might be in a negative way. Then resource leveraging diminishes service or capability. यहाँ पे एक क्वेश्चन के साथ आपको छोड़ूंगा. Can you think when a policy resulted in unforeseen रिसोर्स इश्यूज, नेगेटिव कंडीशंस और अनइंटेंडेड कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस, आप ज़रा इसके बारे में अपनी अपनी सराउंडिंग को सामने रखते हुए ज़रूर सोचिएगा। इसी के हवाले से जो हमारे अनइंटेंडेड कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस एक्टिविटी का भी एक पर्पस है, टू रिकग्नाइज, prevent or correct the impact of unintended policy consequences, जिसमें हमने नंबर 1 पे फैसिलिटेटर को सेलेक्ट करना है, रिकॉर्डर की ज़रूरत है, टाइम कीपर एंड प्रेजेंटर रिक्वायर्ड है। इन नंबर 2 यू हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई द इनएडिक्वेट रिसोर्सेज, unfavorable conditions or unintended consequences that may arise from your recommendation. Agree on 5 to examine further how could you have prevented this in the policy definition. It is very important. Then development and decision stage. Is there an opportunity to correct in the debrief or evaluation stage? This is also related to this aspect, dear students. Communicating policy decisions are required to have some explanation, describe the policy process, outcomes and action, then gain and try to earn the credibility, then go for acknowledging that, anticipate concerns and have answers, phase in actions, monitor and evaluate, and then champion of stress benefit. Dear students, policy audience would be including your informed external implementer agencies, impacted direct, and at the end of this policy and this particular matrix and 9 cell matrix, you also have to talk about the policy audience, informed locals, others, implementer staff, impacted इनडायरेक्ट। ये आपके इस 9 सेल मैट्रिक्स में आपकी इस चीज़ को जस्टिफाई करेंगे, और इसमें जो सेंटर में है कोडेड और शेडेड, वो आपकी पॉलिसी ऑडियंस है। यहाँ भी आपके लिए एक फूड फॉर थॉट है, हु मेक्स अप द ऑडियंस फॉर योर रिकमेंडेशंस एक्चुअली। डियर स्टूडेंट्स, कम्युनिकेशन मीडियम में आपके पास पब्लिक मीडिया है, विच इज रेडियो, न्यूज़पेपर एंड टेलीविजन। Target mediums में you can talk about the website blogs, you can talk about the giveaways, outreach program, informal method भी इसके हवाले से कुछ आपके पास है। कॉफ़ी शॉप कन्वर्सेशन आप कर सकते हैं, ट्रेड शो बूथ हो सकते हैं। आपके लिए फूड फॉर थॉट की फॉर्म में एक क्वेश्चन है, हाउ वुड यू कम्युनिकेट योर पॉलिसी डिसीजंस रिगार्डिंग दिस। डियर स्टूडेंट्स, यहाँ पे डीब्रीफिंग स्टेज में हमारे पास फ्लेक्सिबल थिंकिंग के हवाले से एडजस्ट होना इम्पॉर्टेंट है, इवेलुएट करना और मॉनिटर करना। ये डीब्रीफिंग के डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट्स जो आपको एक ऑर्डर में और दोनों ऑर्डर्स में आप परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं, विच टॉक अबाउट योर ओवरऑल प्रोग्रेस, योर कंटिजेंसी ऑप्शंस, योर चेक इन पॉइंट्स, योर डाटा एंड स्टैटिस्टिक्स, your observations, your comparisons, your scheduled reviews, your legislated requirements, and the question in the form of food for thought for you, how would you suggest your policy decisions be monitored actually? Dear students, the summary of our today's discussion would have been providing us few insights into it, that what are some key ideas you gained from our today's session, then how will you apply one of these ideas in your own community. जो हमें ये सारा डिस्कस करने का फ़ायदा है कि आप पब्लिक पॉलिसी के हवाले से क्या कुछ अपनी कम्युनिटी में इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हैं, एंड व्हाट इज़ वन पिटफॉल you would like your local government टू अवॉइड इन द पॉलिसी मेकिंग प्रोसेस। आपने उन्हें रिकमेंडेशन अपनी लोकल गवर्नमेंट को देनी होती है। विद दैट आई थैंक यू ऑल। अपना और अपने प्यारों का बहुत सारा ख्याल रखिएगा। मुझे भी अपनी बेपनाह दुआओं में याद रखिएगा। उम्मीद है मेरा आज का लेक्चर भी आपके लिए समझना बहुत आसान रहा होगा, जिसने हमने पब्लिक पॉलिसी मेकिंग की असल में एक्चुअल इनसाइड हैपनिंग्स को डिस्कस किया इन द फॉर्म ऑफ हाउ टू, यानी कि पॉलिसी मेकिंग के प्रोसेस में कौन सी चीज किस तरह इन्वॉल्व होती है। इसको हमने 4 फेजेस या 4 स्टेजेस में पढ़ा। आपके लिए मैंने इसको एक एक स्टेज में डिवाइड करके एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश की है, ताकि ऑल द स्टफ रिमेन्स इजी फॉर यू ऑल टू अंडरस्टैंड। उम्मीद है आप सबको समझ भी आया होगा। नेक्स्ट मुलाकात तक के लिए अपना बहुत सारा ख्याल रखिएगा। मुझे इजाजत दें। खुदा आप सबका हामी और नासिर हो। अल्लाह हाफिज।